my radar's always sort of been up for what in our society needs a voice the most. And over the past few years, I've really thought that our natural world is as voiceless as anything out there today.
Brendan Glauser, a journalism master's degree graduate from the University of Western Ontario, is the communications manager for the David Suzuki Foundation, which is one of Canada's most prestigious and influential national environmental nonprofit organizations, with offices in Vancouver, Toronto, and Montreal. Founded and directed by David Suzuki, a scientist and journalist, the organization directs a great deal of its efforts in public advocacy and policy work within government structures and private industry.
So the idea was we would set up an organization that looks at the deep underlying root causes of our destructiveness. And then we can try to find genuine solutions that will move us in a different direction. So that was the idea. It would be based on the best science available, and then we would want to communicate our ideas to the general public.
The current mantra of the David Suzuki Foundation is that solutions are in our nature, and part of that, inherent in that is a belief that system-level, policy-level change is what's going to be most effective in terms of bringing about change towards some of our biggest environmental challenges.
Sometimes it's hard to see why nature is important. We live in cities, human-created environments that are full of people and selected plants and animals. Aside from a few larger parks, our city environment is pretty controlled. Our food comes from the fridge, our water comes from the tap. At least that's how it seems. In cities, we tend to forget that biodiversity, or the total range of species and ecosystems in nature, is the reason we're able to live so well on this earth, among other organisms. We hear all the time that we can't live without a healthy economy, but an economy can only exist if the ecosystems from which it's derived are healthy. Although it's difficult to put an exact value on nature, a recent United Nations estimate says that it's worth 30 times more than the world's economies. Not to realize the economic role or value of that is crazy.
When stuff like this happens, it's a reminder that we don't get to just live on this planet and do what we want and exploit the resources that we want and treat species the way that just manipulate them here and kill them here and do this and emit all this CO2 and gases and everything into the air with no impact on us. It absolutely has a huge impact on us. We only have one world, we only have one home. I love Elon Musk, but I don't think the answer is sending everybody to Mars.
In 2014, the Blue Dot movement set out with a simple idea that every citizen should have the right to a healthy environment. We should be able to assure everyone that clean air and water and a stable climate are guaranteed for all people that live in this country. The response across Canada has been overwhelming. More than 100,000 people have signed on in support of the Blue Dot movement. And volunteers all across this country are doing their best to ensure that this can happen. 140 communities and cities across Canada have signed on in support of protection of environmental rights. It's time to take this to the next level. With your help, we can get legislation passed to protect your right to a healthy environment. This is the next critical step towards achieving our long-term goal of strengthening the Charter of Rights and Freedoms with environmental rights and responsibilities. More than 110 countries around the world have already achieved this, but not Canada. There is a narrow window of opportunity to make this happen, and we need your help. There are 338 members of Parliament in Ottawa. We need to bring them all on board. Every voice, every story matters. Together, We can change history. Things are only impossible until someone decides that they're not. Today is the day we decide.
While the bigger policy level change might be more impactful in terms of footprints, those lifestyle changes are crucial to just changing our awareness. If we start to nurture generations of people who know that single-use plastic bags is not the way to go, who stop buying plastic water bottles, who start leaving their cars at home, those are the types of changes that lead to awareness shifts and that start to get generations voting differently, who start to just change the way we think about the world. David says that one of the sort of, or the two founding principles behind the foundation was good science and good communication. Because, you know, doing the science, doing the research, that's a fundamental and hugely important step. But getting the word out there is equally important. There's just so much content out there, so you need to create really strong content. Cut through the noise, have language that's really clear and compelling, have images that grab you, have calls to action that inspire people. How much clearer can you make it? If you don't have air for 3 minutes, you're dead. If you have to breathe contaminated air, you're sick.
In the past, people have made big changes in their lives in a short time because of war, disease, famine, and personal crises. Now the planet is in distress and people will have to change. We're trying to save a future for our children and our grandchildren that is just as rich in promise and choice as the one we had as children.